Good morning.
Good morning.
How
How
are
are you?
you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. Good. What are we doing today?
We are talking about Comp Laude nominations.
And
I'm
the
missing
road to the winner, right?
the winner. That's correct. And I'm missing our Comp Laude music. I wish we had that rolling, but
That would be cool. That would be very cool.
I hear it in my head.
Is that all you hear in your head?
No, fortunately, no.
Well, we are here to do the road to the winner and talk about the nomination process because nominations are closing soon.
Very soon.
We thought we'd take a couple minutes to get some people on as well as record some footage for letting people know why nominations are so important and also why we're doing them now. Because doesn't it feel like we just did announce the winners like 3 months ago?
It was 3 months ago. Maybe it's more, but yeah, it does seem like it was not that long ago.
So we are here to talk about that. So do you want to go ahead and go into the nomination process?
Sure. And I don't think we said, but I'm Yvonne Guibert. If there's anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Yvonne Guibert, and I'm in Tampa, Florida. It's beautiful today. I think it's going to be 80 or higher and really, really nice weather. And Kristen, where are you?
I'm in Camarillo, California. You know, on the West Coast, the best coast.
Uh-oh. We're going to pull that card, are we? All right. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. And as Kristen mentioned, we are going to talk about the road to the winner, how we get to the winners of Comp Laude Awards. And so we're talking about the nominations process, which we also mentioned is closing very soon. So let's go ahead and dive in. So not sure how many people are paying attention, but the dates were on that last slide, so we'll talk about them again coming up. But right now, let's stay focused on nominations. The deadline is next week, March 31st, and that does say 12 p.m. Pacific time. That's supposed to say it's midnight. I should have put midnight in there. It's 12 a.m. actually April 1st. So you have all the way until the last minute of March 31st Pacific time to get your nominations in. We currently, Kristen and I chatted just a few minutes ago, and at 8 o'clock Pacific time, we had 73 nominations, but they are rolling in pretty quickly because Kristen's pushing out some nudges by email, and we're pushing out lots of stuff on social media as well. But typically we get around, 230, 250. It's been hovering around that in the last couple of years. And we hope to see that many, if not more, this year. So at this point in time, we need all nominations in all categories, but we always are pushing doctors, physicians, that's the same category, and employers, because we seem to be a little light in those couple categories. So we'll talk about the difference between some of the categories a little bit later. So for those that are on, we would love it if you would help spread the word about Comp Laude nominations and encourage people to nominate. It's super easy. To make a nomination takes 5 minutes or less, and the hard part comes later. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And, so we're going to...
Well, let me cut in. And why we're doing it so early. Because people are like, you're not going to announce the winners till the winter. Well, there are a lot of steps that we take to get to those winners.
There are a lot of steps. There's a lot that happens in between making a nomination and getting to that final day where we get to see who the winners are. So, and we're going to talk about that. So we're asking you now, who do you know in the industry that has not yet been recognized with a Comp Laude award, or, more importantly, who deserves it? Who is doing a great job in workers' compensation, advocating for injured workers, advocating for the system, making sure that the system works as it was intended? Who is living, breathing, and sleeping workers' compensation and ensuring that it is coming off in a positive manner for all involved? That's who we're looking for. And getting a little deeper into that on the next slide. So we've got some tools. So we've been doing this now for a few years.
Do you know how many we've been doing it?
Well, you and I never agree on that number. I know how many years I've been doing it. I got involved in 2014 to sort of bring Comp Laude to a bigger stage and make it more national. Kristen, however, was involved in the, I guess we'll call it the stage 1 Comp Laude that was happening on a local level in California. And when did that start, Kristen?
That was 2 years before you did, and I wasn't even involved in the first one because I was I was on maternity leave, but we've done 2. So we are actually getting close to the 10-year mark of this event. It just hit me yesterday. So 10 years, guys, 10 years.
That's awesome. And then, we've got a lot of this information out at complaude.com, but, Comp Laude is the vision of David DiPaolo, the late David DiPaolo, the founder and CEO of WorkCompCentral. And this was his vision. He wanted to see, he was an attorney and he actually practiced on both sides, had a really great understanding of the system. And he really wanted to see the system, because he was involved in the news as it goes, even today, believe it or not, we hear more negative of stuff that's happening in the news than we do the positive. And he really wanted to shine a positive light on all the good things that are happening every single day in the system. And so that was why Comp Laude was developed to be able to shine that positive light. So we already talked.
You and we even right now, when we try to pick the top stories, when we're going to the stories, they're usually negative stories that have the most views, clicks, interest. And so we, being in the news, area and arena, we see that every day. And so we really are trying to make sure that Comp Laude hits that positivity.
That's right. So the goal or the purpose, simply put, is we want the mission of Comp Laude is to create and encourage more positivity in the industry. There are really great people working every day to ensure that people's livelihoods are intact and they get back to work and have opportunities to go back to active, working situations. So there's a lot of great things that are happening day in and day out. And so we want to shine a light on those stories versus, always looking at the negative. That's generally the goal. There's a little bit more finessed statement that we wrote years ago that's out there, but that's generally what it's talking about. And this is a question that I cannot believe comes up year after year, but the question comes up, can I nominate more than one? Well, of course you can, and we really want you to. We'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about the vetting stages. The only thing to remember is, and I'm not sure if we have David Langham on, but I know he'll hear this eventually. David Langham is a powerhouse nominator. He just goes to it, nominates. And the one thing I always remind people is it's fun to nominate in that stage where, like I said, it takes about 5 minutes or less to get the nomination in initially. But there's a second part, and we're going to talk about that. And when that second part comes around, there's a lot more detailed information that we need about the person that's nominated, and it's up to the nominator to collect that information and get that to us so that nomination can continue to progress through the process. So that's where you have to be, cognizant of how much time you have in terms of how many nominations.
But it's a tiny window. It's a tiny window. Right. So doesn't it say don't do it, just be aware, but it's a very tiny window that you'll hear from me and Yvonne a lot of, like, get your vetting done, and that's if it makes it to the second round. But we'll talk about the process and the road here shortly.
Yeah, and Kristen and I are big fans of team and group activities. So what would be really cool is each person let's say a person nominates 10 people. Well, wouldn't it be fun to then, because it really is exciting and fun to see the winners come to the stage and receive their award. And I mean, year after year, every year we do this, Kristen, right? We always see people, people that are veterans in the industry, and they really do enjoy, and they're humbled, and they're just so grateful for that recognition. And it's just an awesome thing to watch unfold. And so wouldn't it be cool if the people that nominate folks, let's say make a nomination team party or something like that. It's a group activity, and then other people can help and go talk to those nominee nominees to help get that information, because it's all done by the system. It's pretty simple, and we've made it really easy. You could do it from anywhere, submit your narrative, submit your information, and it could be done pretty easily if you have help getting all that stuff collected. The hard part is collecting all the good information. So now we're gonna
if you follow our social media channels, you'll see some of the stories. So we had to do the interviews, and you'll see, and that's one of the questions of how did it feel to be nominated, to then going through the steps. And you'll hear the stories of how somebody who hasn't been recognized or didn't think that they were just doing what they do, and they really didn't think that they were doing anything special, but they are. So that moment of them getting recognized from even just being nominated is the first step of excitement. So you don't know what you're going to do for somebody if you nominate them, because they may not think that anybody's watching, but they go do what they do every day. So
yeah, and that's something that I didn't mention before. That's, I think, one of the things that makes this award so special is it's the vast majority of nominations are made by peers. So we are nominating people in the industry that we work side by side with, and that's the really unique thing about this award, is that's that realization when a person is told or handed their award that your peers have nominated you, and then we actually ask them in their little interview afterwards, how does that feel? And it's really awesome to watch. So now we're going to get into how the winners are determined. Before we move off this slide, I want to point out there at the bottom, we have developed a FAQ document. It's out on the complaude.com. So most of these things that we're talking about, actually, we have documented in the FAQs, and they're out there for you guys to reference and pass along or use however you like. And now we're going to walk through the actual process. So step one of vetting, of course, first we have to get the nominations in, and that's what we're hoping to get accomplished today, is to inspire you guys to go out and nominate. And so, as we mentioned, the close is coming up super fast. So once nominations closes, then the next thing that happens on step one is we go through a scrubbing process. That happens at WorkCompCentral. And what that simply means is, it's not a surprise to think that more than one person might nominate the same person. So what we do is we have a system in place where all of those records that have the same person as the nominee, those are compiled into one record, if you will. So the nominations are all put together in one single record, so that as they move to the vetting process, the vetting committee and the judges can see all the documented information that's transpired. So scrubbing happens first, then we get into the complicated stuff. So in step two, several things are happening. And so first, we review all nominations to make sure that they are categorized properly. Sometimes there's some uncertainty about which category, someone is nominated in, and we're going to talk about that. So we might have to move somebody from one category to another. We read Kristen and I will do this part. We read through the actual descriptions and make sure that they're a close match to the category that they were placed in. Right. Then we start the outreach. This happens by the system. There's a letter that goes out to all the nominators. So all the people that placed a nomination, we now reach out to you to say, now the hard work begins. We need to get those narratives in. And a narrative I don't think we have a specific word count on it.
Hold on. You skipped this step. Because so in the nominations, after we've scrubbed, then the nominations committee reviews them all and votes on them. And then we go into the asking for the stories. So we don't do the stories until we have a majority vote from the nominations committee.
Gotcha. I did skip a step.
Yeah.
We're going to make it more confusing to everybody. So, my apologies. So you're right. After scrubbing, the nominations committee goes and looks at every nomination and decides on a simple pass or fail, does this nominee deserve to move on? And let me just tell you, this is a little hint for those people that are making nominations. If your nomination has anything of substance, and what we're looking for is a sentence or two about something that distinguishes that nominee, sentences that read like, because my company's a great company, or because my boss is a great boss, or because they are a great case manager. those usually don't go very far. We're not looking for, a book, but we are looking for a paragraph, a simple paragraph to say, why do you, the nominator, feel that this nominee deserves to win? And it's prompted on the nomination form.
And so it goes before about 7 people on the nominations committee, and they vote on it. And so the system then, after everybody's voted, and yes, they've had to go through 230 nominations. So I apologize for all the advisory board members that aren't here that have had to go through 200 and plus nominations, but they do have to review them and they vote on them. And then what the system will do is take a look, or, get for us the majority vote. And so if they have 4 or higher votes, they make it on to the next steps, and then they go to vetting.
Okay, now that we got all that straightened out, I hope you guys are not thoroughly confused, but it's all documented, so hopefully we'll get you on the right path. I don't think we finished talking about the rest of the stuff there. Back on step 2. So we outreach, we collect all the data, and so the thing that's important to know, I said it before, I'll say it again, the information that we're asking for, the narrative, any support, what we basically need is the narrative and their bio, their professional bio, their photo, their accurate phone number and email, because if we can't get a hold of them on the phone or by email, guess what? They're not going to get through the process. So that stuff's really important. And sometimes it gets a little tricky because if somebody's moving around, then, we need to make sure that we have the right email address. So, then once all that happens, they get forwarded on. And like I said, I didn't say this, but let me say it now. The dates that are on this infographic are general dates. They're not always going to be accurate to the day. They might move a little bit year to year, but these are general time frames. And we're pretty close to these time frames this year. And then anybody that doesn't have all their information received, they get disqualified. So that's the critical piece. If they don't get their information in, they are then disqualified and they do not move forward. Now, the real hard part begins with vetting. The vetting committee, we take the nominations that are left, and so they are divided up into smaller groups. So this time it's not so difficult. So a vetting committee member will get, say, maybe, I don't think we've ever had more than 10 for one person. Have we, Kristen?
It's usually about a dozen.
Okay, so we try to keep it manageable, 10 to 12 per committee member, and you get that group. That's your group of nominees to work with, and then it's your responsibility to reach out to that person, talk to them, have a conversation, make sure their information is accurate, and confirm that they are generally aware that they've been nominated. And then there's another piece to this. Once we've made sure that they're aware, we've got all the right information, then in step 4, the vetting committee actually reaches out to their assigned team, their assigned nominees, and they actually do a little mini interview. And we've heard over the years, committee members that do this part really love it. We have several members that have asked to continue to do this part, because this is where the committee members get to really know people that they maybe didn't know before, or learn things about a person they didn't know before. So it's a really cool process, and it's one that's really integral to the vetting process overall. And they complete the questionnaire, they have a conversation, they document their answers, and they're asked to, as through the process of this question and answers, they are asked to put into the tool what they feel after talking to that person distinguishes them as a nominee. And then they have another hard part. After they go through, they're going to talk to every person on their team, of their group, and then they have to choose on their group who goes on to become a finalist. And that's a really tough choice, because I've heard from people in the past that they wish they could pass everybody, but we've asked them to really dig deep and look for the ones that are really shining through and only pass those on to finalists. So that's the hard part of that. And then
also I've heard really quick on this committee is that this is one of the most rewarding parts of Comp Laude, as well as a committee member, the people that have gotten to speak to different individuals, because you get to hear their stories, you get to hear what they've done, you get to hear, you do interview even the injured workers and have discussions with them, and it's a very humbling experience, especially I did the vetting process last year for the first time ever, because I'm like, you know what, I want to be able to talk about it, and it is one of the most rewarding experiences there is out there. So we do, even interview the injured workers. So.
Yes, we do. And then the last step, the final step, once all that is done, the finalists are then handed over to the judges. And now the judges get to see everything that's been collected. They have a lot of work to do because they have to look at all the information collected, all the narratives, the questions and answers that the vetting committee collected. And then however many finalists are left, and I want to say it's usually about half, right, of the total nominations field, so it's about 100, maybe 120. They have to look at each and every finalist and decide, basically read it and assess a score based on what they have in front of them. And that's also a really hard part because their scores are going to have a really determining factor, a real high determining factor in who wins. So again, we have a committee of judges. It's always an odd number. We feel pretty confident that we've created a system that doesn't allow one judge to skew the results one way or the other, but we always look at that. Kristen and I, after the judging happens, we really dig into the numbers and look at it and try to look to see if there was a judge that tried to throw it by some fancy numbering scheme or something, but we haven't really had that. And then once the judges do their thing, do their magic, then we are, like I said, Kristen and I are looking at the information to determine who wins. And
well, no, we just review it. It's all, industry selected. Everybody, all the different hands touch it. We just, make sure. But yes, it's all in.
What I meant was, like I said before, we're looking to make sure one judge didn't try to skew the system in some way. So we're reviewing, what I'm saying is we're looking really hard at the numbers, making sure that it reflects an accurate depiction of what we asked the judges to do. And then once we've determined that we feel good about that, then we pass it through, and that's the process that determines the winners.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Phew, I always sweat when I have to go through this.
Yeah. So that's the road to the winner, everybody. Like we said, it's not easy. This is why we're so hard on the deadlines, especially if you've been on the other side of a call from me or Yvonne of get your stuff done, whether you're a nominator, an advisory board member, a nominee. Why is because there's so much involved in creating it, and it's a system. It's, a lot of hands on deck, a lot of people in the industry. It's all our peers, not just WorkCompCentral. And we have very limited on it other than the scrubbing and making sure people turn in their data. But the advisory board board is made up of people in the industry from all sides, from East Coast, West Coast, in the middle, just a bunch of different individuals. So I gotta go to the next slide. Sorry.
I think we're going to be ready for questions. So that's just a nice picture of the award to get everybody excited of why we're doing this. It really is an awesome process to see those folks, go through the vetting process and then, just to see who the winners are. And now I think we're ready for questions. Please tell me we are.
We are. I don't know. You made the deck. I don't know.
What's the next slide?
We do have questions coming in. So again, type them in your chat function if you'd like to ask us some questions or need some clarification. But one is, will there be the possibility of a deadline extension?
Why do you guys ask that every single year? Just get your nominations in already. What the heck?
Why are you yelling? Don't yell at anybody. No.
I'm kidding. I'll let Kristen answer that question.
We'll take it into consideration. We are really trying, like we talked about, the whole road and everything, getting it in. If you want to reach out to Yvonne and myself, like you really have this nomination, but we do have the timeline, as you saw, in there to get it. Because again, and why is it mid-August for the winners again? So that we can have some time to review, but ordering awards and take some time, and so we have to give them. So it's again, it's and now with the mailing process and everything. So that's why. So we do try to stick as close as we can to deadlines, and that's why they're there. We've sat in a couple hours meeting to do the backwards calendar for it all.
Yeah, and so if anybody has been watching over the last several years, we typically do make an extension. So that's not going to be very long. So like I said, be thinking about who your nominators are, because like Kristen said, it really is. There's a lot of work to be done. So we're prepping. The next step is to get all of our committees filled, and then make sure that everything flows through the timeline as smoothly as possible. All right.
Another question.
All right, let's go to the next one. That question's coming in.
Okay, well, the other, here's the form. So I've been encouraging past winners to help identify nominees. This seems helpful to me. Yay, Tammy. Any other tips to identify nominees? That's a really good question.
It is a good question. I just think, I know Tammy, you do a really good job every year. I did the winter interview with Joseph Malloy, and was congratulating him. And towards the end, I asked him, I said, so I'm really looking forward to seeing more Northwell Health employees nominated, because you guys are just in the news a lot. They were the site, one of their facilities was the location for the first COVID vaccination. They're winning awards right and left. So I told him, I said, I'm sure there's lots of doctors and nurses that are doing great things every day, and we would love to see those in the nomination queue. And he said, oh, I didn't know that we could do that. And so I don't know that there's a great tip, Tammy. I just think that what Kristen and I have talked about is making sure that we go back to immediate past winners and encourage them, sort of like passing the torch, like, who can you think of that either is on your team or somebody that, maybe it's a client that you work with every day. But we always focus on asking folks, who do you know? Like, just think about in your immediate circle, who do you know, and who do your clients know that deserve, to be in the process?
Yeah, and that's my biggest thing is I think of like somebody that you're like, man, I see them doing great things in your circle, or just that you come across that is like, wow. And getting to, it also helps you build relationships and getting to know that person so that you can feel comfortable in nominating them. But it's also just taking a look around you and your circle and like, man, I love doing work with this person. What I see them do and accomplish every day is amazing. And what they do for the industry.
All right. Any other questions so are we looking at the nomination form now? I'm not seeing it on my screen. So this is the nomination form. When you go out to complaude.com, I hope it's super easy to find. There's a on the main navigation bar, there's a term that says nomination. So you click on that and you get to this form. So it's what you see is what you get. You fill out the name, title, company, who do you want to nominate, suggest a category, and then we're going to talk about categories a little bit more in a little bit. If you don't like any of the categories there, if you think your person is not fitting in one of those categories, go ahead and suggest one. And then Kristen and I, when we're reviewing all that stuff, we'll take that into consideration. We might reach out to you to discuss it. And then tell us why. This is that part that I was saying, don't just put because they're a great case manager. We don't need a ton of information here. So all you guys that are thinking that nominations take so long, this is not the part where we need all the documentation. Just a paragraph or two. That is enough. I mean, we typically can tell with one paragraph or two if it's a person that merits, a further look. And that hopefully will make it a little bit easier to get those nominations in on the front end. All right. Any questions before I move into some of the differences in the categories? Okay. So we do get some confusion between an individual nominee, a person, and a company. And I would say, Kristen, I'm going to ask you to help me out here. But obviously, an individual is an individual person. Companies, if you're nominating a company, there's really only two categories. I guess essentially there could be three, but let me talk about the two that I think of firsthand. And that would be an employer. So a company that's an employer, like that's the category that Northwell Health won in. So it's a a risk management system at an employer company, or the employer company in whole, because they have embraced an advocacy model and are doing everything they can to make sure that all employees understand that. Or the other entity is, I just went blank. So it's employer or vendor. Yeah, a vendor or a service provider. That's a really great category for a company. Some people often like to put the company in the industry leader category, but more than likely, Kristen and I would move that to the employer based on how the narrative reads. And again, if there's any confusion or gray lines, we would reach out to the nominator to clarify that. But more likely than not, it's going to be, moved over to that other category, unless you've stated a case that makes sense for it to be an industry leader.
So the biggest difference is, are you talking about a company's program or the individual? And so that's why we created the risk management. So I think what we're trying to say is, if you're looking at a company for what they do before they're an injured worker, during the injured worker, and post, and everything that they've put into place, and that they're an employer that really looks out for their employees, not just as an injured worker, but before as employees. So that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, and so I think a couple years back, we did add the category of risk professional for that purpose. So if you have somebody that you want to nominate because you think that individual has done an outstanding job of helping to create the program at their employer, then that would be the appropriate category. But like Kristen said, in the employer category, we're looking more for, it's a company-wide program that you're actually nominating. And then I did touch on the difference between employer and risk professional. I think I just stated that. If there's any questions or need more clarification, let me know. Then we also want to talk about the difference between a medical professional and a doctor/physician. So doctor/physician is clearly, they either have to have the designation of a doctor, or they are a physician, that is seeing injured workers on a regular basis. The medical professional category, any other professional that has a medical designation, a nurse, a physical therapist. I don't know, Kristen, you might want to talk to this, but there were a couple years where we kind of went in and spiked those out. But we're trying to keep the awards limited so that we aren't just producing like 20, 30 awards. We want to keep the integrity of it's a special award. And so we're trying to keep all medical professionals contained in that bucket, if you will. And what we're looking for in the nomination is tell us what makes that person shine.
Yeah. And so, medical professional is going to be anybody that just doesn't have the doctor or physician, like you said, designation.
Okay. So any other questions? Again, I'm pointing to the FAQs there. The URL has a lot of these questions answered. And what do we have next?
This is a good one, and actually I'm going to write it down. One question we had, is there a list of past winners? So we don't have one list per se, but they are listed on the complaude.com if you change the years. But that is a good suggestion. I'm actually going to give it to our digital media person today to see if we can have a list just for that. So thanks, Tammy. I'm going to get that, and we'll get it out and either on complaude.com, but also I'll distribute it.
Also, Tammy, look at the booklet. It has the winners this year, and I want to say last year's winners, right? Or no, it's just the top 2 awards.
The highest honors, yeah.
But it's super easy to go out to Comp Laude and just change the year, and then you'll see the list of the winners.
Yeah, but I'll work on something. It's always good to still highlight the winners over the years. So we'll get something.
So where is Comp Laude going to be held? After a lot of discussion, we have decided Comp Laude will be virtual again this year. I know that makes everybody sad. We are sad too, but that is a decision that's been made. We are going to change it. We'll go back to the 2-day format. So we'll have the sessions on 1 day, not spread over 3 weeks. We're looking to really change up the sessions this year. We're going to make them shorter. Most likely we'll not do CEs. We want to really here's what we're looking for. we don't want sessions to be educational sessions that are available at every other conference or every other event or online. We really want the sessions to dig deep so we can figure out what needs to be done in our industry to make it more positive. What do we need to innovate? What do we need to change? What do we need to evolve? And those are the kinds of conversations that we want to have. And that's what we're going to be looking for. So Kristen and I have some ideas. We're looking for more advocating more for the injured worker. We want more interaction, engagement between panelists and attendees. And so we're most likely going to consider some broad topic areas that fit within the Comp Laude mission and vision. And then we're going to go to our advisory board and say, okay, here are our broad topics. Let's go get some speakers now to fit under these topics and develop the discussions from that perspective. And then keeping in the Comp Laude standard, we will have Gala Day on the 5th, which is a Friday. And we are super excited to say that we'll have the Injured Worker panel back, sponsored by Sedgwick, Gallagher Bassett's People's Choice Awards, and then, of course, Broadspire's awards ceremony. So those are all going to be on Gala Day, and that will be a fun day that we're looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. And if you participated last year, you know how it was. So we'll have some fun, the TED style talks, everything, And so we'll be working on a conference style platform. And so I'm excited, some of the tools that I think we didn't have the capabilities this last year that we'll be able to use. I really want to engage, now that we know where we're going, really engage the industry throughout the year and use some of the tools that they have to showcase, especially get the injured workers more involved in a way that we can. So I really want that injured worker audience, not audience, but I want to get them more engaged and involved. So hopefully we'll have that opportunity this year.
Now's your time. You got Kristen and I. Kristen's going to have to leave here soon. She's got another call, but I can stay on and take more questions if you want to chat about anything or talk about anything.
But yes, thank you, everybody. We're excited. It's, Comp Laude is continuing on, and we're, recognizing great people in the industry. If you didn't get a chance to attend any of the stuff last year, it is on WorkCompCentral's YouTube. The awards ceremony, the interviews, we're still doing interviews so that we can make sure that we share the stories of the winners. So those are still coming along. Make sure you're following the Comp Laude channels, because we do put a lot of information there. This will probably get pinned to the top, or at least snippets will, on the Comp Laude channel. So if somebody's asking how Comp Laude works, this is just one slice of the pie of what Comp Laude is about. There's all the other areas, but this is one of the most important. And so we really want to make it an event that everybody continues to be a part of. All right, everybody, good seeing you.
Bye, Kristen.